What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be doing a thermostat housing replacement on a 2011 Kia Sorrento 4-cylinder, so stay tuned. But first, please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps me out. Otherwise, let's get going. Alright guys, we got all set up here. Got the van pulled up, got the vehicle right here. First things first, I want to mention, see how I got this spot in the shade right here? That vehicle was not like that when I got here. So definitely pull the vehicles into the shade if you can. It's going to make your job so much easier, because that is some real hot heat right out there. So anyway, this is the engine here. This is what we're working with. The part we're going to be replacing, it's kind of down in here somewhere, and it's leaking. I've already been out here earlier, a week or so ago, to diagnose this issue. So we need to take all of this stuff out right here so we can get access to it. Starting with this piece right here, we're going to use a Phillips screwdriver and unscrew these screws, pop the clips out, and we can remove this. Then we're probably going to go ahead and remove the air box. So there's going to be a screw down there where we loosen the clamp, and this part should come out. There's a hose here, there's another hose there, and then we'll take the top of the air box off and see if it's bolted down or if it'll just pull up as a unit. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Alright, so I went ahead and took those 3 screws out and just popped that guy up, pulled it off, set it down. Also, just to get to the hoses a little easier, I pulled the engine cover off. It just pops up off of these studs here. Went ahead and loosened that screw, got both of our hoses off, and I took these clamps off here. So we should be able to remove this entire piece here now. Just got to wiggle it off the throttle body. Okay. Alright. And we'll set that guy down right there. And then I believe the rest of the air box should just pull up. There's the air filter. Not super clean, but definitely seen worse. And then I don't see any bolts. Oh, never mind. There is a bolt right there. And then there's another one there and another one there. So we're going to have to loosen those up and get this air box out of the way next. And then once you got those 3 loosened up and removed, you can pull this air box out of there, the lower section. Set that down. And then now we've got a much better view at the part that we're actually replacing. This electrical connector right here for the coolant temp sensor goes into it, and the hose goes into it right here, and there's another couple hoses that go into it right here. There's like 7 or 8 connections on this thing. We're going to go ahead and lift the tab on this harness here and try to pull it back. Okay. So that gives us some room. I'm going to try to get this harness loosened up a little bit. I think we can also pull it off right here. And it doesn't want to, though. There we go. And then another thing that I might do is take these 10mm bolts out that hold this harness up here, and that might give us some more wiggle room as well. Alright guys, so I've located some more of these little harnesses here, and some of them I unclipped, some of them I took the bolts out. Got the 2 bolts out here, and there was a couple more brackets that hold these electrical connectors on. But now I think I got enough slack in this where we can work around it and replace this part. And I did notice that it looks like the top bolt on the thermostat housing part of it is just completely gone somehow. It's leaking between the block and this part. So I don't know if it's the part itself or just the gaskets, but we're just going to replace the whole thing because we don't want to take any risks. But now that we've got access to it, we can go ahead and start removing the parts connected to it. So there's a radiator hose here. The upper one connects to it. The lower one connects to it. There's another hose coming in sideways to it that we need to disconnect. Then there's another smaller hose right here that connects to it. So that's 4 connections. We have the electrical connector on the temp sensor. That's 5 connections. And then I believe that we have 2 heater hoses connected to it as well on the back side that we need to remove. So I'm going to go ahead and get started taking all of those different components off of it. And once we've done that, there are just a few bolts that hold it on. Here's one, and I think the other one's right over here. There may be a couple more, but I'll show you guys as I go. Alright, so I went ahead and took this hose off, and I put a different hose on it and routed it down there into a catch pan, and I gave this a couple squeezes, and it is siphoning all of the coolant out for me all by itself. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a genius. That kind of just worked out good for me. Kind of thought it was a 50-50 shot that it would work. But the main reason I did that is because there doesn't seem to be petcock on the radiator of any kind, or at least not one that's easy to get to. And since I'm already in this area, I figured that I might as well just go ahead and do it like this. So luckily that's working out for me. I think it's just about done, at least from the lower hose, or the upper hose, I mean, so we should be able to remove that. Yep, thankfully we didn't have a huge splash everywhere. So now we're going to remove some more hoses. We've only removed 2 so far. So we'll go ahead and continue taking stuff off. I'm hoping that what I just did there will lower the coolant level just below this part in the system, so we don't really have to like completely empty out the coolant. So we should be able to, honestly, yeah, I believe we should be able to go ahead and remove the lower hose as well without worrying about a huge spill, as long as we keep it kind of pointed up. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep going. Alright, so went ahead and removed the lower radiator hose and tucked it over here in front of the battery. And then you may or may not need to do this on yours, but I went ahead and removed the bolt for the thermostat housing, and removed it because the other hose that comes in sideways, the clamp was oriented in a way that I couldn't really get on it, and I felt like removing that housing was a little easier to get to it. That's kind of what it looks like. So whenever I put it back together, I'm going to make sure that the hose on this clamp is kind of pointing at me right about where my finger is, so that I can put it back on without removing this from the new one. But if you're getting stuck on this sideways hose on the clamp, you can just take the whole piece off. So now I believe we just have to get at the heater hoses, and there may be one other hose right here connected to it, so we'll get those removed as well. Alright, so this is the one that I took off first, the one that I connected a hose to siphon it out. This one is the throttle body hose, and that one connected right here, directly under the upper radiator hose, and then this first one I took off connects right here. So after looking at the new part, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connections on the front, all hoses, 7, 8 on the back, and then 9 for the electrical connector. So there are 9 different connections on this part. It is truly the heart of the cooling system on this vehicle. Almost everything runs through it, apparently. So we've removed the upper and lower radiator hose. I believe this is the In fact, I don't know what this comes from, but I believe this is the thermostat bypass. This is the throttle body coolant, and then I'm not sure what this other one is, but we've disconnected this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. We still have to disconnect this one, and then the 2 heater hoses, and I did go ahead and disconnect that electrical connector already. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys where I'm at. Down in here. Where's it at? There we go. You can kind of see that that hose I got to take off next. And then there's the electrical connector removed. And then we just have to kind of move this out of the way a little, and we can get at those 2 heater hoses. Alright, so we went ahead and got both heater hoses disconnected. Not too bad on that. And then we got this other hose down here disconnected. I think it's right there. And that one was probably the toughest one of them all to get off. If anyone's curious what I'm using to get these off, I'm using this 45-degree pair of needle nose pliers to remove the clamps. And then where necessary, I'm using these large hose pliers to loosen them up and remove them. So now we just need to remove the bolts, and this part should come off. Alright guys, as you can see, this thing was completely destroyed. There's supposed to be a ridge all the way around here, and it's just gone completely. Same over here, you can see that it broke. Got this guy over here mowing the grass, so sorry if you can't hear me too well. There was actually another pipe that connected to it down there too that I didn't realize, and there was a wire connected to it with a little clip. So I just cut the clip, took out the 10mm bolt for this pipe that goes through that hole you can see there, and then you can definitely see the evidence of the coolant leak right there for sure. So I'm going to clean that up and put it back on. You can see those 2 bolt holes there, and there's also a stud on the front that holds it on. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all that stuff up, and we're going to be going on with the new part. Alright, so we got the new part on there, bolted up. I still got to put this pipe back on the back, but that's where we're at right now. You can actually see the part we're looking at a lot easier when it's brand new and clean. I know that's right. Moving on. Pipe on the back side. You can barely see it going in right there, curving towards the back of the engine. I went ahead and I put that the whole part in place, and then I tried to put that in because that's the way that I took it off, but it just refused to go in for whatever reason. And then I was struggling with it, thinking that I had loosened it up from the other end, which, by the way, the water pump pulley is this one right here, and that pipe goes into the water pump. Trying to show you guys. Here, you can barely see it right there. That pipe goes into the back of the water pump somehow, or into the housing that the water pump connects to, rather. And so I thought that I had somehow loosened it from that, but I gave it quite a few taps and it didn't want to go in. So what I ended up doing was loosening the thermostat housing assembly and kind of pulling it back out a little bit towards this way. And I was able to get it in, bolt it up, put the thermostat housing back on, tighten it up. Everything seems to be good to go. I'm of course going to check for leaks after and hope for the best. But we've got that pipe on finally, and then we got that hose on right there that was kind of a pain in the ass earlier. So from here, everything else should be fairly simple and straightforward. We're going to go ahead and reconnect all of the hoses that we took off, any bolts for the wiring harness, and the electrical connectors that were unplugged. And I'm going to just go ahead and get everything put back on here, and we should be all finished up here soon. Another thing thing you want to be mindful of, at least on the front, when you're putting these hoses back on, is it's kind of smart to do them in a specific order. Like, I wouldn't put anything else on until I got that one that I just showed you a minute ago on, because you'll have a hell of a time trying to get that one on if everything else is installed. So I would probably work from the engine side out. You definitely want to connect this before some of these other ones as well. Probably go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably just work from left to right. Seems like the easiest way to connect them without stuff getting in your way. Alright, so we finally got every hose, every electrical connector, every bolt that holds a wiring harness or a bracket on. Everything's reinstalled pretty much for the most part. I do still have to put the air box back in, but we're getting real close to done. Got our two fat hoses, our two skinny hoses, and our two really fat hoses on the front. Heater hoses on the back. That electrical connector. Got the pipe in. So we're looking pretty good now. Shouldn't be too difficult from here on out. Set the air box back in place, put those 3 bolts back in. Also, while they were out, I went ahead and hit them with some PB Blaster, because the ones that were closest to the battery were a bit rusty and somewhat difficult to remove. And so just for future, just to prevent those bolts from breaking in there on anyone, I went ahead and put some of that on there. So now we're going to go ahead and put the upper air box, the engine cover, and that little cover that went back here on. Alright, so we got everything over here put back together finally. And we're filling it up with coolant. It's already stopped bubbling. So we should be pretty close to full. And now obviously when the system gets pressurized, things may change, but as of right now I'm not seeing any coolant leaks, so that's a good sign. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start the engine, let it run for a little bit, turn the heat on, watch the temperature, make sure it's not leaking or overheating, and we'll be all finished up. I'm sorry if you guys can't hear me over the engine, but I had to replace this clamp right here on one of the heater hoses on the back, because it wasn't sealing up properly. But now that we've got that done, I don't believe that we have any leaks. We're not overheating, so we should be good to go now. Alright guys, and that's going to be the end of the video for today. Please go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel as always. If you learned something, I really hope that I was able to help you out on your Kia Sorrento thermostat housing replacement. Otherwise, I'm sure some of you have heard this already, but we are now offering channel memberships, super thanks, and all that good stuff on the channel. And we also have a promo code for some Auxito headlights underneath in the description. 15% off if anyone's interested in that by using promo code Andy's Auto. And otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Hope you have a great rest of your day.